Hello my viewer, and thank you once again for joining me. This is TCL Media. My name is always Daniel Lovey, and welcome to our third segment about mental health crisis. We are still reaching out, and today we are joined by a guest. He's going to introduce himself as we kick off with this conversation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Joe Kiriaka, a mentor and also a businessman and a politician in this country. The reason we're here today is to have a conversation with these young gentlemen who I call my sons, and who have different ways and different things and they have different ways of looking at life, and they do different things in different ways. To start with, I'd like to start with Love. Maybe Love, you could tell us, where were you born, and how was life when you were growing up, and what are the challenges you experienced that have made you be the man you are today?
Okay, honestly speaking, I was born in UK, United Ukambani.
Oh, not the UK. All right. All right. I thought it was United Kisumu also.
No. It's United Ukambani. And my growing up, I'll not say that it was not a walk in the park.
But you have parks in Ukambani?
Yeah, we have parks.
Okay, go ahead.
So, a walk in the park, what I'm trying to say is that I was brought up in a very harsh environment. A very harsh environment.
You mean a humble background?
I would say humbled one, but also harsh, because
a humbled harsh one.
A humbled harsh one, because okay, you know, we had to begin things from scratch. You know, not growing up, you grew up knowing that there was, you know, in our today's society, we tend to believe that by the end, when someone ages at the age of 18 or even 24, now whereby now you have been told, you know, go and look for ways on how you are going to take care of yourself. But it was a perspective, like when you grow and when you try to look at your father, your mom, or even, okay, I can say during that time, you know, mom and dad, they went to in the urban areas, and then you are left at home with your grandma and your grandfather. And now when you try to look on the input about getting food, you have to go get a djembe, go and work, and then you're given time that we are going at home at exactly at 1 p.m. so that you can go and get your lunch and then go back again to the shamba. And then you realize, I'm contributing to the food that is being eaten in that home, whereas I'm supposed to sit down being fed until to some age, and then I'm told, now right now you can go and do whatever we are doing.
So when you're growing up, you are a hunter at the same time, a gatherer.
Yeah. So
you are gathering and hunting for the home.
Yeah, very good. So I am participating in that, okay, of which I felt like, okay, this is the way. This is the way. You know, I used to remember those. I will just call them hot days. Like,
how old are you, if I could ask you?
Well, right now I'm aging. I'm still in the second floor.
Second floor means 20s.
20,
but you sound like you're 40 something, because if you did hunting and gathering at such an early age, no wonder you're saying at 7 you thought you were 18.
Yeah, you know, so I felt like there was something different that I found in this community, in this family, and I'm like, okay, because I can see other people are doing it, so there is no way I can evade or maybe run away from it. You know, you have to wake up at 6, go and fetch water in the morning. You see. And then coming to Nairobi, and then as you grow up, you are told that there are some things we call taps, you know. So it was not that easy. You know, there are some times we used to go even in school without shoes. And you know, like, you'll one day come to class and you...
Stop there. Maybe at this point, maybe I'd like to hear where he's coming from. Okay. Because when he hears you talking about shoes, no shoes, I don't know, maybe you can tell us more about your life. Did you not wear shoes like him? Or you're a gatherer and a hunter? And also the other thing that he best mentioned, that he was the one who was bringing food, and sometimes he could think of running away from home. And does that contribute to why in the village very many children end up staying in the town, because they've run away from home, because life is hard, they're not able to get food, and so they end up being in the town and become chokoras. If anything, they go into farming, into people's farms, and there's a lot of child labor. Is that the reason?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Maybe Kevi, you could tell us, how were you growing up, and when you were growing up, because I can see from the way you look compared to my brother here, or my son, you look like you were born at a time when I don't think you scratched the ground like he did. So maybe you did tell us, how did life How was life when you were growing up? Or where did you grow up?
Well, I've been born and bred in Nairobi. Life growing up was fun. You know, life growing up for me was riding bicycles, going for swimming. I never really had to be the one who's looking for food. Nah, all that was being provided for me. So life was not, I wouldn't say, well, I'm from a humble background, but I wouldn't say I've had to.
But your parents were working in Nairobi and living with you?
Yes.
Because what Lovi is telling us, his parents came to the town to look for a way of life, but they left him with a grandmother. So do you think his life was harder because he was living with a grandmother, or is it because life was just tough for him?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say.
Have you ever heard of such people who have lived that kind of life like
Yes.
you're hearing it for the first time today?
No, I've had it. I even have friends who've lived that's the same life. I don't know. Maybe the only part I'd say maybe is hard because maybe they miss the parents because the parents are not around. Because you see now when your parents are around, you get to bond more and spend time with them. But when they're outside fending for you and they don't come and you may be in shags, you start missing them. Maybe that's what I'd say.
So maybe just to bring both of you to speed in this conversation, it seems like, would you have wished to have lived like him?
Well, I would say, first of all, I have a staunch belief that the way I would have stayed at home, it nurtured me in a way, and I feel like I'm cultured into a perception of there's some things that I know. I'm not bragging, but I feel like if he's introduced to him, he will complain. But to me, I will take it like as a challenge.
So life taught you to harden yourself in terms of life.
To harden myself. Even when I get this today and I lack tomorrow, I'll just be like, okay.
So Kevin, would you say then you would have liked to have tried his life also, or you think that life would have been too tough for you?
I don't think it would have been too tough. I wouldn't say I'd have wanted to stay in shags, to be very honest. But I wouldn't say it would be tough because I believe you just adapt to where you are at the time. So if I have to be in that situation, I have to adapt to the situation. Whether I'm used to staying in Nairobi or shags, if it needs be, I'll just have to adapt. I have no choice. So I think it's more of, I'd have adapted, but to be honest, I wouldn't have wished to be born in shags.
I think talking about adaptation, maybe I'll give you my story. I think I'm living in a story of both your lives, because I'm also born in Nairobi, grew up in Nairobi, and I call myself the first generation Nairobians. The first, like how you were saying, you were scratching the ground in your time. We were scratching Nairobi in our time.
Okay.
So I was born in a time when my parents came in the late 40s, early 50s to Nairobi as the first generation Africans. And I grew up, I was born when we were living in Hamza Makadara, which is actually Eastlands. But why we were there then was because all Africans used to live there. So very few Africans were living across the Uhuru Highway coming to Langata, Karen. And I remember in 1967, my parents were graced by God and we moved to Langata. And so I grew up in Langata from 1967 as a very young guy. And now, of course, that was high class for the people who were staying in Nairobi. And I had the privilege to go to very good schools, and I thank God about it, that I went to various schools, including St. Mary's. And I did my stand 7 and also did my 4th form in St. Mary's. And thereafter I went to repeat in a school in Kitui. Why? Because I think Nairobi life was a bit too, as you were saying, just good life. And so our grades were not in par with what we were required to have done, because we were too involved with too many other things in the life of town, and that also affected my education. So I went to repeat in a school in Kitui. And I remember when I got to that school in Kitui, then I saw your life. So you're imagining I'm living like your life, then I go and live this guy's life. Where we are scratching water, when he talked about scratching, we used to go to the river to get water from the river, because there was no school, the school had no water. So we used to now at 4 o'clock around this time, could take our buckets with our clothes, go to the river to shower, because now you're going to do the shower, because tomorrow you will not shower in the morning. So we take our buckets, go to the river, and because it was dry at like a time like this, we have to scratch the sand to be able to see where you can get water. First, to drink that water, because you are thirsty, because you've come down the hill, you're very thirsty with your buckets, you drink that water. 2 is to try and scoop that water to shower. 3, to scoop that water to wash whatever clothes you've come with. So that's the life. And for me, that life was another life, because I didn't know Kikamba, I didn't know how to accustom to this. But as you said, I knew I have to do what I have to do. I'm here, I have to live this life. And one thing I had been taught in life is that, I remember one time my dad asked me, when you went to that school, who did you find there? I said, I found some young boys, and then how are they? I said, they're okay. So are you going to stay in that school? I said, but you know, it's tough. He asked me, but are they animals? I said, no, they're just human beings. Then you just stay with them. And that's when I came to realize that actually, you just have to adjust to where you go. So I lived that life. I remember I lived that life, finished my O-levels again. I did my O-levels again. And now my mind was clear into what I wanted to do in my life. So I was able to go to my A-levels. Now A-levels, I went to my A-levels I did in Kwale, which was now the balance between Nairobi, because that was coastal, and the village, where I balanced life. But I balanced that life and was able to do very well in my A-levels, and I qualified to go to university. But now that time, we were having a transition of university where you had to go to NYS. But I thought to myself, I had had enough NYS in my other schools.
And the training.
And the training. So I didn't know I was going to NYS to go and do what.
Yeah.
So I got an opportunity to go to India, and where I went to do my BCom and my postgraduate in marketing and finance. But at that time, when I went to India, I was already hardened, because I'd lived many lives and I'd seen enough. I'd seen good life, I'd seen medium life and bad life. So I went to India, and I remember India was another life.